Hey everybody, hope you had a good holidays, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever you celebrate, Christmas, Hanukkah, none, any of the above, something different. It got crazy cold where I am. It dropped like 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's ice and snow just in the last couple of days. It's really cold. But I did a video where I beat Antonio, the $1,500 bot on chess.com, and I beat the 1,800 bot Wally, and this is with no assistance where you get the 3 stars. And I had posted a video where I almost beat Isabel, but I actually didn't beat her the 1,600 bot, but I did finally beat her. Um, the other one I had her checkmated or mated twice and didn't follow through. But I noticed also that somehow it shows that I beat the 2,300 bot Francis without assistance, and I don't remember doing that. So I may have to look up that game if possible and post it because that's pretty crazy if I did. Let's go over the Isabel match. It's not too long. Um, so with the white, I open with the Queen's Gambit. And she did this like Indian game, East Indian defense type thing. And I can't remember if it was her or a different bot that they did that, and that's the game I beat them as well. It might have been her, because they don't. That's an unusual one for them, and I'm not sure if it has some weaknesses to it for the bots. So I brought out the knight to f3. She's setting up for a fianchetto. Pin the knight with my dark bishop. She took over the long light file with her bishop. Brought out the second knight. This is usually a good spot in the Queen's Gambit because this spot's usually got a pawn in it and it's protected even if it's their pawn. She threatened the bishop. I moved it back. She brought the bishop over to, protect the rook. Protect the knight or type of thing. I brought out the pawn, the H pawn to 3, just probably looking to stop that little move. Also, if I was going to maybe castle on this side, have an escape square ready. But one thing with the bots, sometimes if you wait on castling, it can help you to win. So she brought out the G pawn to make my bishop move. I moved back 1. She brought her knight forward, threatening the knight on c3, threatening the bishop on g3. They're both protected with pawns. It can also, I believe that's all it can do from here, other than go back. So I brought out the E pawn to form a little dark squared line going there. So it's a pretty even match so far. She brought out her dark bishop to basically pin my knight because of the king. I brought the queen to c2, which protects both the bishop and the knight. One thing I've noticed, this f2 square and the c2 square, so if you watch some certain systems, those can be very powerful squares for the queen, especially early on. She brought the f-pawn, which appears to be a little bit of a mistake. So I brought out my light bishop. This finishes my development and threatens the knight, which is not developed. Which is not protected. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it is protected on the long diagonal. It is protected on the long diagonal. The long diagonal got a little complex in this one, I believe. So she came down and took my bishop, my dark bishop. I had to retake with the pawn. So this isn't protected now. She withdrew her dark bishop. I've got a little bit of advantage at this point. I'm sorry, when I was talking about the diagonal, the dark pawn here is now unprotected, but on this one, I'm sorry, on the long diagonal, the knight is protected by a pawn and that bishop is protected, and that pawn is protected. So the light bishop doesn't actually, it can only go to here currently, but this pawn I just left unprotected there. So I castled long castle. This was a kind of a hard debate, it was somewhat of a debate. I just think I was trying different things out to beat these bots, and even though it's only got 2 pawns, there are a lot of pieces there, and they're sort of facing towards where their opening is. So I think I didn't want to bring the queen here where there's an open file right there, or the king, excuse me. Anyway, I decided to do long castle. She did a short castle, and that gave me a fairly big advantage, it says. Yeah, they were suggesting that she should bring out her queen, push this pawn, the f pawn, or bring out the knight. But she castled. So I used this opportunity to sort of mess with her because I had the queen and the bishop lined up on the light, and I went ahead and checked her, which they didn't like that move that much. They were suggesting that I bring out this light bishop onto the long file, on the long diagonal to threaten that bishop, because it's actually not protected currently. But I went ahead and went for the check. She moved the queen to the corner, the king, excuse me, to the corner. Now I brought out a pawn to the light diagonal, which is protected, but that can be taken with that, and they didn't like that move. She brought her f pawn forward, sort of probably trying to look to trap my bishop. I withdrew the bishop 1 to start getting ready to evacuate if need be, I think. She brought the king forward to threaten my bishop. I withdrew the bishop to h5. She brought out her queen to f6. They've got me ahead in this game, even though there hasn't been much material taken, considering it's the 17th turn. She's taken a bishop, I've taken a knight. But I guess the computer likes my development better, and possibly that, yeah, her king is sort of open over here, and she hasn't really developed much over here. So I brought the h pawn forward. I think let's look into create some play here. That did leave this one unprotected, but if take, probably just trying to open up this file a little bit and maybe create more room for me to back out. Or maybe I just didn't see a great move. Also that it is protected right here by the knight and then the rook. So if she takes with her pawn, I can retake with the knight, and it can't retake. So she took the my pawn in the light diagonal. They were suggesting push this pawn here, which would cause that to have to move. That's the number one engine one. The other one is bring the dark bishop down, threatening the knight. But she decided to take the pawn there, which they have that as a bad move. I recaptured because if she takes it there, it's protected with the knight. So she did bring the pawn forward on g, threatening my knight. I moved the knight to the center. Again, this isn't on that diagonal, but it's in one of the 4 center. I've got 2 of the 4 center squares. It's protected by a pawn and a rook here. The queen's facing it. The only thing I see unprotected is this pawn right here, I believe. Well, this technically too, but they can't attack that currently. She brought the queen down. That was another poor move, apparently, by the engine at least. They were wanting her to push this pawn and threaten my knight, push the c pawn, or withdraw, or finally develop her knight, and they were suggesting to there. But she brought out the queen. That attacks this g pawn and the d pawn, although the d pawn's protected, and so it attacks the 2 unprotected pawns, basically. I brought over the rook to the e file to protect that pawn, and they didn't like that move. The computer was suggesting that I bring this rook over to the f file, which has just got a pawn and a rook. So she went ahead and took the pawn on d5 with her light bishop. I retook with my knight. She retook with the queen. So she's got a pawn advantage now, but the game's showing pretty even. I did bring the rook over to the F file, which is one of the earlier suggestions. Got these both lined up on pretty open files, and the king is right here. And I've got this bishop, which hasn't been booted yet. She doesn't have a light bishop to boot it. So, it's actually fairly complicated, I think, for her to get to it. Because I've also got the queen facing here. Now, this was apparently her biggest blunder, or one of her biggest blunders. They were suggesting bring out the knight, withdraw the king to the corner, or bring out the knight to either of its developing squares, the B knight. But she brought her queen down to the corner, took my B2 pawn. She may have been looking for some, type of checkmates going on here, but they had that as a big swing for me. And it's because I believe I found the right move. Yeah, so if you look here, there was only one great move, and it was knight to here, which checks and forks, and it's protected. So it checks, forks the bishop, and it's protected by the rook and the queen. She withdrew. Her only move to avoid a forced mate, not that I would find these long mates, but her only move apparently was rook here. But she withdrew the king to the back line. So here again, this forked 3 pieces actually. So here I saw knight to h6, takes a pawn and checks her and threatens that G knight, or the G pawn. She brought up the king to threaten my knight. I withdrew and checked her again. She withdrew again there. This time I got the bishop out of the way, and that actually took me out of a forced mate. She decided to do an exchange of the rooks, which brought her back to mate 9. So now I've got the rook lined up on this file. The king can't go there. I got the queen pointing that way. I've got this bishop, and I got this knight. She has this queen to defend, and that's really it. She recaptured my knight. It says mate in 3 here. Brought in the queen to check here, protected by that. She withdrew to the corner. Mate in 2, brought the rook down. Mate in 1, capture the queen, and I got her. I didn't blunder it. Didn't seem that hard when she made that blunder. I executed it pretty well, and that's basically it. So I beat Isabel 1600 bot. I'm at like an 830 right now. I feel like I should be a 900 to 1000, but I've blown a lot of games. Anyway, so that beat that one. I'm going to try to beat that 2000 bot next, because I haven't beat that one cleanly. All right, thanks for subscribing, liking, viewing, and commenting the videos. Appreciate it, and have a good one.